There are moments in life when noise surrounds us from every direction, yet the answers we seek hide in the quiet spaces we refuse to enter. We think speaking makes us powerful, but often it is silence that reveals who we truly are. When you stop trying to fill every empty moment with words, you begin to hear something far more profound. Your own awareness, your own truth, your own inner voice that has been waiting patiently for you to listen. Silence is a force that strips away the unnecessary layers of noise that cloud the mind and distort perception. When the tongue becomes still and the mind stops racing, a deeper form of awareness rises to the surface. Thoughts that once collided chaotically begin to settle, revealing truths that were always present but constantly ignored. In this quiet, the mind stops chasing illusions and finally stands face to face with what is real. Silence has the power to expose intentions, emotions, and inner conflicts with a sharpness that words can never achieve. Words can be rehearsed, reshaped, or hidden behind clever expressions, but silence offers no such camouflage. In the moments when nothing is spoken, everything becomes visible. The slightest shift in expression, the smallest hesitation, the faintest crack in composure, silence magnifies them all. It shows a person exactly what they carry inside, without mercy and without distortion. Sitting in silence forces a person to meet their own emotional storms head-on. Instead of reacting impulsively or drowning discomfort under constant chatter, silence makes you face the raw intensity of your inner world. Emotions rise, clash, and settle in their true order, teaching restraint, clarity, and control. Through this confrontation, a stronger version of oneself begins to form, one who does not break under pressure, who does not collapse at the weight of feeling, but learns to master it. Silence also reshapes the way humans connect with one another. When presence is no longer dependent on speech, relationships begin to deepen naturally. Shared moments without words often communicate more honesty and more sincerity than loud conversations ever could. Silence teaches listening, and listening teaches understanding. Conflicts fade, assumptions fall apart, and a quieter, more meaningful connection grows between hearts that know how to be present without the constant need to speak. Through all these layers, silence ultimately reconnects a person with the core of their being. It reveals the truth beneath roles, expectations, and identities. When the external noise is removed, an inner guidance begins to speak. A guidance that is sharper, wiser, and far more trustworthy than the restless mind. This inner voice becomes clearer with every quiet moment, showing a path that leads a person not away from themselves, but back to who they truly are. Silence has a way of exposing what lies hidden beneath the surface of a person's mind. When there are no words to hide behind, the truth begins to rise on its own. Every suppressed emotion, every unspoken thought, every buried intention quietly surfaces. Silence leaves no room for masks or pretenses because it forces a person to confront what they truly feel. In that stillness, the mind cannot escape itself and the raw, unfiltered truth becomes impossible to ignore. Silence draws out the subtleties of emotion that spoken language often dilutes. A person's hesitation, their breathing, the tension in their body, the way their eyes shift, these silent cues reveal more honesty than any crafted sentence ever could. Words can be shaped to deceive, but the body's silence betrays what the heart holds. In moments without speech, true feelings spill into the open, exposing fear, love, anger, or uncertainty with undeniable clarity. Silence also demands an internal confrontation that most people avoid. Without the distraction of speech, the mind begins to echo with its own unresolved truths. This self-reflection can be uncomfortable, even painful, because silence acts as a mirror that refuses to distort. It shows a person exactly what that they are carrying. hidden insecurities, forgotten desires, unacknowledged wounds, and compels them to acknowledge these truths instead of running from them. When silence is embraced rather than feared, it becomes a powerful instrument for understanding others. By withholding words, one begins to see beneath the surface of another person's behavior. Their tone without speech, their posture, their gaze, all of these elements become clear indicators of their true state. Silence heightens perception, allowing insight into intentions that spoken explanations often blur or conceal. Through this heightened awareness, understanding becomes sharper and more authentic. Ultimately, silence exposes the foundation of one's emotions with a precision that no verbal expression can match. It tears away illusions and forces direct contact with reality, both within oneself and in others. In its quiet, everything hidden becomes visible and everything confused becomes defined. Silence does not merely reveal the truth, it demands that the truth be acknowledged, accepted, and faced with unwavering honesty. Silence teaches a person to sit with the weight of their own emotions without collapsing beneath them. When there is no impulse to speak or defend, the inner turbulence that usually hides behind words begins to settle into its true form. Discomfort that once felt overwhelming becomes something you can observe instead of drown in. In this wordless space, the mind learns that it does not need to react instantly to every surge of feeling. It discovers that endurance is possible, even in moments of inner chaos. Silence becomes a training ground for understanding the root of emotional disturbances. Instead of being carried away by anger, fear or frustration, you begin to see where these feelings originate. You see the triggers, the patterns, and the wounds that fuel your reactions. This awareness sharpens with every moment of quiet, revealing truths that constant talking or distraction would never allow you to notice. Understanding grows naturally when the noise fades. Silence rises as a shield against impulsive behavior. The space it creates between emotion and reaction becomes the ground where wisdom takes root. The mind learns to pause, to breathe, to evaluate before it moves. This intentional stillness weakens the power of rash decisions and strengthens the grip of clarity. What once felt urgent becomes manageable, and what once controlled you begins to lose its hold. Silence also builds a form of inner steadiness that cannot be shaken easily. When you repeatedly face your own emotional storms without running or lashing out, a quiet strength forms within. You begin to recognize that emotions are not enemies but signals, and that you are fully capable of standing firm while they pass through you. This resilience becomes a part of your nature, shaping the way you handle every challenge. In this deep relationship with silence, balance becomes more than a temporary state, it becomes a way of existing. You stop being pushed around by every feeling, every thought, every external disturbance. Instead, you rise above them with a grounded presence that comes only from meeting yourself in moments of stillness. Silence, in its seeming emptiness, becomes the source of your strongest stability. When silence becomes a shared space between people, it transforms the way they relate to each other. Words often fill gaps, but they rarely capture the depth of presence that one person can offer another. In quiet moments, attention shifts from what is being said to what is truly being felt. Every gesture, every glance, every unspoken breath communicates something far more honest than speech ever could. The bond formed in such silence carries a weight that no conversation can match. Silence allows empathy to flourish because it forces both people to truly observe and listen. Without the constant push of dialogue, you become aware of the other person's subtle expressions, their hidden tensions, and the quiet rhythms of their being. Understanding emerges not through explanation but through presence, as the absence of words magnifies the power of attention. This kind of connection cannot be taught, it is felt and experienced in the spaces between words. In silence, trust deepens naturally. When someone chooses to remain present without filling the air with reassurances, the act itself becomes a declaration of care and respect. You realize that words are not always necessary to convey loyalty, concern or love. Trust grows from being witnessed fully, without interruption or distraction, and silence provides the perfect canvas for this witnessing. Shared silence also reveals vulnerabilities that words often hide. When neither person is speaking, the masks fall away and the unspoken truths of fears, insecurities and longings are allowed to surface. In these moments, there is a raw honesty that strengthens the bond because it is born not from performance, but from simple presence and acceptance. Ultimately, silence deepens relationships by creating a space where authenticity can thrive. It teaches that connection is not about constant dialogue or clever phrasing, but about being fully available, fully attentive and fully present. The strength of a relationship is measured not by how much is said, but by how deeply two people can exist together in the quiet. When the mind is quiet, intuition begins to surface with clarity and precision. Constant thinking and unnecessary mental chatter often drown out subtle signals that guide decision-making and insight. In silence, the mind becomes like still water, reflecting truth without distortion. Ideas and realizations that were previously hidden beneath layers of noise start to emerge effortlessly, as if they were waiting for the calm to reveal them. Intuition is strengthened because silence allows the brain to process information without the pressure of immediate reaction. In the absence of constant input, the mind has space to connect patterns, sense possibilities, and recognize what is real versus what is imagined. The quieter the mind becomes, the sharper these intuitive signals appear, guiding thoughts and actions with a natural intelligence that cannot be forced. Silence also creates a sense of inner alignment. When external and internal noise is minimized, decisions do not come from fear, habit or impulse. They arise from an understanding that is deeper than logic. Intuition is not random, it is informed by accumulated experience, observation and awareness. In the stillness, these elements converge to produce insights that feel effortless yet profoundly accurate. By embracing silence, a person becomes more receptive to subtle cues from both the environment and their own inner self. A fleeting emotion, a minor sensation, or an almost imperceptible thought can carry the answers that words or analysis might overlook. The more the mind rests in quiet, the more these small yet powerful signals are noticed and understood, creating a kind of guidance that is both reliable and immediate. Ultimately, silence is the foundation for intuitive clarity. It removes the interference of overthinking and allows the natural intelligence of the mind to operate freely. When intuition is cultivated through quiet observation and presence, decisions, insights and understanding arise without effort, revealing truths that would otherwise remain concealed by the constant noise of thought. When the mind is free from constant chatter, it becomes a fertile ground for intuition to emerge. Thoughts that normally compete for attention settle into their proper place and a deeper awareness begins to rise. In this state, the mind is no longer a battlefield of confusion and doubt, but a clear mirror that reflects subtle truths. Intuition appears not as a forceful command, but as a quiet, undeniable understanding that guides without hesitation. Silence allows the mind to notice patterns that are normally overlooked. Small details, fleeting impressions, and subtle connections become visible when the constant noise of thought is removed. These insights are not forced or manufactured. They arise naturally as a direct consequence of clarity. the quieter the mind becomes, the more receptive it is to signals that are often drowned out by distraction and overthinking. Intuition gains strength through patient observation in silence. By resisting the urge to immediately react or speak, the mind develops the ability to distinguish between fleeting impulses and meaningful guidance. This discernment is critical because true intuition is rarely loud or dramatic, it is subtle, precise, and often appears only when the mind is still enough to recognize it. Through regular engagement with silence, the inner intelligence of the mind begins to operate more consistently. Decisions and judgments start to emerge from a place of understanding rather than guesswork. The mind learns to trust these quiet insights, recognizing that they are informed by accumulated experience and a deep internal awareness rather than by random thought or external influence. Silence transforms intuition from a rare occurrence into a dependable guide. By creating space for subtle awareness to emerge, the mind becomes finely attuned to the hidden dynamics of situations and people. The insights gained in this stillness are not fleeting, they are enduring, precise, and profoundly aligned with truth, allowing action to arise naturally and with unwavering confidence. Resisting the urge to speak cultivates a rare kind of strength within the mind. Every time a person chooses stillness over immediate reaction, they train themselves to observe rather than act impulsively. This repeated practice builds a mental framework that is resilient, focused, and capable of withstanding pressure. The discipline gained through silence is not imposed from outside, it is forged from conscious choice and sustained attention. Through silence, awareness sharpens. When the mind is not constantly filling the space with words, it becomes capable of noticing subtleties that would otherwise go unnoticed. A fleeting thought, a hidden emotion, or a subtle shift in the environment becomes clearer. By holding back speech, a person develops the ability to perceive with greater precision, to read situations and emotions accurately, and to act with thoughtful intention rather than reactive impulse. Inner strength grows because silence teaches self-control. Each moment of restraint reinforces the understanding that not every reaction is necessary and not every urge must be satisfied. This control over one's impulses translates into a wider ability to navigate life's challenges with calm and clarity. The mind becomes less vulnerable to manipulation and distraction and more capable of maintaining focus on what truly matters. Silence also builds patience, a cornerstone of mental discipline. By waiting before speaking, a person learns to tolerate discomfort, to sit with uncertainty, and to allow understanding to deepen naturally. This patience strengthens the mind's endurance, allowing it to operate under pressure without losing clarity. Over time, silence transforms impulsive energy into deliberate and constructive action. The mental discipline born of silence becomes a foundation for every aspect of life. It enhances judgment, strengthens emotional resilience, and fosters a sense of balance that cannot be shaken by external chaos. The mind, trained in restraint, develops an unspoken power, an ability to act decisively, perceive accurately, and remain centered regardless of circumstances. Through silence, discipline becomes not just a habit, but a defining quality of the mind itself. Silence serves as a powerful barrier against unnecessary conflict by creating space between impulse and action. When a person chooses not to react immediately, they prevent the escalation of tension and avoid feeding arguments that have no constructive outcome. In that pause, the mind gains clarity and the situation can be observed without the distortion of anger, pride, or fear. By holding back words, a person ensures that their response, if it comes at all, is measured and purposeful rather than reactive. In moments of silence, the mind can assess the true nature of a conflict. Many disputes arise from misunderstanding, assumptions, or miscommunication, and reacting hastily often compounds the problem. Silence allows the mind to see beyond the surface, to understand intentions, and to distinguish what truly matters from what is trivial. It prevents energy from being wasted on fights that offer no real resolution, turning potential chaos into an opportunity for discernment. Silence also protects relationships by preventing words that might later be regretted. In heated moments, impulsive speech often leaves lasting scars, creating tension that could have been avoided. By choosing quietude, a person maintains integrity and preserves trust, demonstrating control over emotion rather than submission to it. This restraint becomes a form of invisible strength, signaling maturity and wisdom without confrontation. Through silence, a person gains the ability to respond from a place of strength rather than weakness. It creates a buffer between provocation and action, allowing calm judgment to emerge naturally. The longer the mind remains undisturbed by the noise of argument, the more capable it becomes of navigating complex interactions without surrendering to emotional reactions. Silence becomes a strategic ally, not a sign of passivity. Ultimately, silence transforms conflict into clarity. It prevents unnecessary battles and allows energy to be focused on matters that truly deserve attention. By using quiet as a shield, a person not only protects themselves but also cultivates a sense of inner authority, demonstrating that wisdom often speaks louder than any words ever could. Silence transforms the very nature of communication by giving words a weight they would otherwise lack. When a person has spent time in quiet observation, every word spoken emerges from awareness rather than habit. Speech is no longer a reflex or a filler for emptiness, it becomes deliberate, intentional and precise. The listener senses the difference immediately because the words are rooted in understanding rather than impulse. In silence, one learns to listen more deeply, which directly enhances the power of communication. Observing without speaking allows the mind to grasp nuances in tone, expression and emotion that are often missed in hurried conversation. By understanding fully before responding, a person ensures that their words address the reality of the situation rather than reacting to assumptions or incomplete perceptions. This attentive approach gives speech a clarity that is rare and compelling. Silence also teaches patience in communication. Instead of rushing to fill gaps with words, a person learns to allow pauses, to let thoughts mature, and to give the listener space to absorb meaning. These pauses are not empty, they carry authority, intention and presence. Each statement becomes a measured act and the conversation transforms into a space of depth and reflection rather than noise and distraction. The practice of silence strengthens authenticity in speech. Words spoken after reflection are less likely to be distorted by ego, fear or the desire to impress. They become an honest reflection of thought and feeling, communicated with precision and integrity. This honesty enhances trust, builds respect and makes the message resonate far beyond the moment it is spoken. Through silence, communication becomes more than mere exchange of information. It becomes a conduit for influence, understanding and connection. When speech is chosen carefully, it carries intention, meaning and impact, turning every interaction into an opportunity for clarity, insight and transformation. Silence has the power to reconnect a person with the core of their being, stripping away the layers built to meet the expectations of the world. Roles, identities and labels that once seemed essential begin to fade when the mind is still. In that quiet space, the distractions and pretenses that shape daily life lose their grip, allowing the true self to emerge naturally. It is in these moments that a person begins to recognize who they are beyond performance and external validation. By retreating into silence, a person becomes aware of their own patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior that usually go unnoticed. Without constant distraction, the mind begins to observe itself with clarity and honesty. Habits, fears, and desires that were once unconscious come to light, revealing the motivations that drive actions. This self-awareness is not learned through speech or instruction, but through the patient observation that silence affords. Silence also restores a sense of alignment between inner truth and outward action. When the mind is quiet, decisions and choices are no longer dictated by societal pressures or fleeting impulses. Actions begin to reflect genuine intention rather than reaction. In this state, a person experiences the power of being grounded in their own reality, moving through life with authenticity and purpose that cannot be imposed from outside. Through silence, a person cultivates a deep sense of presence. Each moment becomes more vivid, more connected, and more meaningful. Distractions lose their ability to fragment attention, and the mind settles into the natural rhythm of being. In this presence, a person experiences the fullness of life, not as a series of tasks or roles, but as an unbroken connection to their own essence and to the world around them. Ultimately, silence acts as a mirror that reflects the true self. In its stillness, pretense dissolves and the heart of identity stands revealed. This connection to essence brings clarity, inner strength, and a profound sense of freedom, allowing a person to live fully and authentically without the constant pull of expectation, judgment, or noise.